Hi, this is Kendall Boyson, professional life and recovery coach, and you're listening to Encouragementology, the practice of instilling hope. Hi there. Thanks for joining me. On this show, we're talking about searching for fulfillment and discovering true satisfaction. Have you ever felt like you were on a constant quest for the next thing? A new job, a new relationship, a new milestone, believing that once you achieved it, you'd finally feel complete? It's a familiar cycle, the anticipation, the accomplishment, and then the quiet realization that the longing is still there. What if the reason we keep searching isn't because we're broken, but because our hearts are tuned to look for something deeper than surface-level success? We live in a world that applauds striving and achievement. What's next becomes the refrain, as though staying in motion ensures meaning. But that chase often leaves us restless. Sometimes it feels like chasing the horizon. You can see it, but the closer you get, the more it moves. In that gap between what we hope to feel and what we actually feel, questions begin to bubble up. Why isn't this enough? What am I really searching for? That's where things get interesting. Many people turn to psychology, self-help, and personal development for answers, and those tools can be incredibly valuable. But what if part of the search is overlooked? For some, fulfillment is found not just in doing more or having more, but in cultivating something bigger, a relationship, a connection, a sense of being supported by more than ourselves. Some call that spirituality. Some call it faith. Some simply call it purpose. Wherever you land, today, we're going to explore how satisfaction may come not only from what you achieve, but from who and what you invite into your search. When we talk about fulfillment, satisfaction, and purpose, the words can sound interchangeable, but they carry different weights. Fulfillment is that deeper sense of wholeness, like your life has substance and meaning beyond the day-to-day. Satisfaction is more about contentment with your circumstances, feeling that what you have is enough, at least for the moment. And purpose is the guiding direction that pulls you forward, often tied to your values, your passions, and how you contribute to the world. Together, these elements form the framework most of us are chasing, whether consciously or not. Psychologists often make a distinction between the search for meaning and the presence of meaning. The search is the active, restless phase when you're hungry for clarity, digging for something that explains or validates your existence. The presence of meaning is the experience of already having it, living in alignment with your values and feeling that your life matters. Interestingly, research shows that people who feel they are actively searching tend to report lower well-being than those who feel like they already have meaning. That doesn't mean the search is bad. It simply highlights the emotional toll of always chasing but never landing. Now here's where it gets tricky. Many of us stop at the surface, looking to career achievements, personal milestones, or material comforts as the ultimate answer. And while those things can absolutely add joy and motivation, they rarely deliver lasting satisfaction on their own. What often goes overlooked is the spiritual dimension. The idea that fulfillment is tied to something bigger than ourselves. For some, that something bigger is community, legacy, or contribution. For others, it's a relationship with God. Too often, spirituality is dismissed as something you have to give up your worldly joys to experience, when in reality, it can be the peace that helps everything else fall into place. Let's turn this into something personal. You don't need a journal in front of you, though that never hurts, but just take a moment to reflect as I ask you a few questions. Think of a time when you reached a milestone you were sure would be the thing that finally made you feel complete. Maybe it was a graduation, a promotion, a big purchase, or even a relationship. How long did the glow last? Did it linger? Or did it fade faster than you expected? What did you find yourself reaching for next? Now imagine drawing 2 columns on a page. In the first, list the things that currently bring you joy, peace, or satisfaction. These might be simple, like time with a friend, a walk outside, creating something, helping someone. In the second column, jot down the things you believe would bring satisfaction if only you had them. Maybe it's more money, a different career, a dream home, or recognition. When you compare those 2 lists, what patterns do you see? Are the items in the first column mostly relational and internal, while the second column leads external and achievement-based? Here's where the bridge comes in. That gap between what we think will satisfy us and what actually does is often where we sense something missing. Some people try to fill it with experiences, others with accomplishments, and many with self-improvement. But what if the missing link is connection? Something that can't be bought or checked off, but only nurtured. For some, that means leaning more into relationships or community. For others, it means exploring spirituality or even a relationship with God. You don't have to have it all figured out today, but being willing to ask, am I open to something deeper, is a powerful start. At this point, it helps to see how researchers have studied the very thing we're talking about, the human search for meaning. Psychology has been looking at this question for decades. What makes us feel satisfied, purposeful, and truly alive? And what's fascinating is that the findings often point to things we might overlook in the busyness of life. I found an article with the Greater Good Science Center called 7 Ways to Bring More Meaning to Your Life. It highlights practical, research-backed strategies that anyone can use to add meaning to their days. What I like about this article is that it doesn't make the search for fulfillment sound like an impossible mountain climb. It breaks it down into simple, everyday choices. And while the piece is written from a secular perspective, you might notice how naturally some of these suggestions overlap with spiritual practices many people already embrace. How often do we stop to think about the meaning of life? If you're like me, probably not much. Even though I may feel a vague sense of anxiety around how my life is unfolding and the inevitability of death, I don't often slow down enough to reflect on what's happening after we die or what it means to live life to its fullest. But according to a new book, Start Making Sense, by psychologist Stephen Hine, this is the wrong attitude. By reflecting on existential questions like these and considering our own answers to these questions, we can live a more authentic and meaningful existence. When people feel they're leading a meaningful life, their lives make more sense to them. They have a sense of purpose that guides their behaviors. They feel that their lives matter and that they're capable of making a difference in the world. As Hein writes, the search for meaning is an inherent part of being human. Yet many of us don't take the time to think about our place in the universe or what we value most. Instead of focusing on what might bring us more meaning, we direct ourselves with superficial sources of gratification, like overconsumption, alcohol and drugs, TV binging, or mindless social media scrolling, which are easier to access and therefore tempting. The ease with which we can get sucked into these interferes with making meaningful changes to our lives. So how to focus on the larger context of our lives? Well, we can look to philosophers who tried to explain the different approaches to the search for meaning. For example, Kierkegaard, a theologian, believed in God but also believed that people have free will and that meaning in life is a personal construction. Camus, on the other hand, believed there was no God or inherent meaning in life, so we must revolt against the absurdity of it all and live life with passion. Contemplating conflicting views like these helps us clarify our own beliefs about life's bigger questions. Psychological science can help explain why we have this urge to see our lives as coherent and meaningful. If they aren't, we'll experience unpleasant cognitive dissonance and try to resolve that somehow. Hein writes, our brains have evolved into what I term as a sense-making system, which ensures that we feel what we're doing is meaningful and makes good sense, and directs us to make efforts to correct matters whenever it senses anything that no longer makes sense. Though we have tools at our disposals, the path to more meaning is not necessarily straight or narrow, but one involving personal choice and many possible detours. Our personal sense of meaning will be affected by our culture and the events in our lives, how we managed them, and what they taught us. The trick is to recognize this and use it to our advantage. Everything we encounter is wrapped up in layers of meaning, many of which are subjective and personal, and those meanings determine the ways that we make sense of our situation and the ways we act. In other words, we have some power over the meaning we attribute to events and how these come together to shape the meaning of our lives overall. The keys to a meaningful life generally stem from three things: our close personal relationships and communities, our work, and being connected to something greater than ourselves. Each of these can have a huge effect on our well-being through the meaning they impart. While there isn't necessarily a one-size-fits-all approach, here are some tips that Hein suggests for finding meaning. Are you ready? Ground yourself in your personal values. When people encounter problems in their lives, they can react in different ways depending on how grounded they feel. When people are grounded, they feel that the key connections in their lives that provide the foundation of a sense of meaning are solidly intact. They know who they are, who their important relationships are, and what they stand for. And they're in a better position to confront any new threats they might encounter. A simple exercise of writing about what you value and why it's important has been found to benefit people in many situations. He points to studies suggesting that doing so can help people change their lifestyle in healthy ways, do better in school when disadvantaged, and accept their choices in life and their mortality more easily. Use nostalgia to reflect on your life. Engaging in nostalgia can help us see parts of our lives that have remained steadfast despite the passage of time. By reflecting on past experiences and how we dealt with them, we can boost our sense of continuity and authenticity. To stimulate nostalgia, you can look through old photos, listen to favorite songs from the past, or go through keepsakes and recall what was happening at that time in your life. Or you can contact an old friend and reminisce about the past. It can be especially powerful to recall times when you were socially connected with others. Research has found that reflecting on our lives through nostalgia can help us increase our sense of meaning, feel more socially connected, and have a greater sense of authenticity, and be motivated to pursue important goals, among other benefits. Pursue self-transcendent experiences. There is a reason many people find meaning in religion. It can give us a sense of self-transcendence or being connected to something bigger than ourselves. But for non-believers, there are other ways to seek transcendent experiences that inspire awe and wonder, and these too bring meaning to our lives. For example, watching a beautiful sunset or a starlit sky, witnessing people doing supremely moral acts, encountering deep states of meditation, or seeing incredible architecture or art that can be awe-inspiring. When we have these kind of mind-expanding experiences, they challenge our view of everyday existence in a way that forces us to think about what life means and what matters. During awe experiences, people's lives feel more significant and meaningful as they have the sense that they're connected to something more vaster than themselves and that their existence extends beyond the material world. Enhance your relationships. One of the most reliable sources of meaning in our lives is the interpersonal connections that we have, in particular, those of our closest relationships. For that reason, it's good to spend time with those we love, whether that means our families, friends, or romantic partners. Nurturing these relationships brings a sense of meaning in our life, even when they're challenging. Our sense of meaning can help us maintain them in the long run. For example, a parent who finds taking care of kids to be tedious or difficult may be able to persevere and find joy because of the meaning in it. Another way that relationships can imbue meaning is when we are part of a group or community with shared interests and values. If you lack this sense of belonging in your life, it could help to volunteer for a cause you believe in, perhaps providing help to others in need or working towards preserving a green space in your community. Find meaning and purpose in your work. The work we do in the world is a primary way we fulfill existential needs. When people think about who they are, a big part of their answer comes from what they do for a living or whatever organizations they belong to. Work provides a sense of identity and self-worth, and it allows us to contribute to something greater than ourselves, which feels purposeful. If you find it hard to find meaning in work, or if you're retired or have lost the everyday meaning work supplied, it's still possible to find meaning in volunteering or participating in groups that interest you or taking classes. Seek psychologically rich experiences. While there are many roads to happiness and meaning, one that is less commonly recognized is what psychologists call a psychologically rich life. This means seeking experiences that are novel and different, ones that challenge our way of thinking, offer us new perspectives, or stimulate deep feelings in us. While these can be large in scope, like living abroad for a year, they can also be simple and easy to do. For example, try things like new ethnic cuisine, visiting an art gallery, or trying out an escape room with friends. Psychologically rich experiences present people with complex challenges, and they provide opportunities for learning and discovery, all of which tend to be associated with enhanced feelings of meaning. Recognize your own heroic journey. All of us have had to face obstacles at some point in our lives. If we can focus on how we overcame those obstacles, whether pulling on our own personal resources, learning new ways of thinking or behaving, creating allies to help us in our quest, or something else, we can tap into our own heroic narrative and find a sense of meaning in our existence. Of course, writing about the heroic thread in our life may not grab you, nor might some of the other ways to find meaning. But it doesn't hurt to assess where you are in each of these areas of your life and see what you might be missing. If you can shore up any of the underpinnings of meaning that you find are lacking, you'll start to feel that your life is more meaningful. So let's break it down and remind ourselves of some key takeaways. Meaning grows when we align our lives with our values. So first, know your values. Clarify what matters most and let that guide your decisions. Relationships and connection play a huge role. Investing in others, giving back, and belonging to the community are central to feeling fulfilled. I love this idea. Purpose doesn't always arrive in one big epiphany. It often unfolds gradually, like small steps, reflecting on this or that, or learning from your experiences. If you don't have the experience, you can't learn. Don't forget the importance of pausing to reflect. Asking bigger questions about why and what. This keeps us from drifting through life on autopilot. And simple practices like gratitude, volunteering, and acts of kindness carry more weight for meaning and satisfaction than we might expect. When you look at these points, they feel very human and practical. But if you peel back the layers, you can see how they hint at something even deeper, being connected to something larger than yourself. Some find that larger in community or legacy. Others find it in God. Either way, it reminds us that true satisfaction usually comes from looking beyond ourselves. I love that idea because we're all searching for something. We're constantly moving forward. We're gathering, whether it's knowledge or assets or friends or community or fulfillment. We're in that gathering phase. If we're not, let's look at that too. If we don't feel a need to reach out and grow bigger within ourselves, in our community, in our spirituality, why not? Those are good things to take a look at too. Never go on autopilot. I know a lot of people think that that's great. It's like, oh, I drove home. I don't even know how I got there. It was so great. Next thing I woke up, I was at home. Autopilot, not a good thing. Be intentional. Why are you checking out? Why are you afraid to plug in? All good things to look at. So how do we move from restless searching to grounded satisfaction? It's one thing to talk about the concept and another to bring it to reality in our daily life. The good news is you don't need a grand plan or a total life overhaul. Small, intentional steps can create lasting shifts. Ready to take a note? Start with clarity. Take time to define your top 3 values. The qualities you want to guide your choices. Maybe it's integrity, creativity, family, growth, or service. Then, once a week, choose one action that reflects those values. This keeps you aligned with what matters most instead of drifting toward whatever looks shiny in the moment. Next, practice gratitude and connection. Science tells us that fulfillment often grows when we look outward, not inward. Reach out to someone who lifts you up, offer encouragement to a friend, or volunteer your time. These acts create a ripple effect of meaning and remind you that satisfaction is often found in contribution, not accumulation. Finally, be open to the deeper dimension. For some, that means mindfulness, meditation, or quiet reflection. For others, it might mean experimenting with prayer or journaling as a way of talking to God. Simply being honest about what you're searching for. You don't have to label yourself or have all the answers. Just making space for that possibility can be really transformative. And remember, searching isn't failure, it's growth. If you feel like you're still looking, take it as a sign that you're alive, curious, and open to discovery. Satisfaction comes less from racing to the finish line and more from learning to embrace what you uncover along the way. We've been talking about searching, striving, and what it really takes to feel satisfied. And I came across an essay that captures this tension in a very relatable way. It's from Simplify magazine, and it's called Chasing a Richer, Fuller Level of Happiness. The author shares how easy it is to get caught up in what society tells us will make us happy. More money, more stuff, more recognition. And then contrast that with the deeper, quieter satisfaction that comes from aligning life with purpose. It's a reminder that sometimes our search isn't wrong, but our target might be off. My friend Jason and his wife are in their early 40s. 4 years ago, they had 3 school-age children when they adopted a 12-year-old from the New Jersey foster care system. Understanding that their lives would be forever changed by this decision, they moved forward because they knew it was the right thing to do. They had an opportunity to change someone's life, and they couldn't pass it up. Today, life looks a lot different for them than it once did. The challenges of parenting a child who has experienced more than children should have to endure has stretched each person in the family in ways they never imagined. As Jason and I shared a cup of coffee last week, I was curious how he'd narrate his family's journey. "Joshua, I've got to be honest, it's hard," he said during a moment of openness and vulnerability. "Some days at home are better than others, but there continues to be a lot of really rough moments." I listened and nodded while knowing deep in my heart I had no idea the depths of emotional and physical struggle their family has faced in recent years. Jason continued, "You know what's weird? Maybe the hardest part is everything I have been forced to confront about myself through all of this. Struggles I thought I had overcome in my life and lessons that I didn't think I had left to learn. All my assumptions about what the perfect American life is supposed to look like have been challenged." A follow-up question came to mind, one that I struggled to ask because I didn't want it to be misinterpreted by him in any way. I proceeded slowly, almost apologetically. "Jason, would you say that you are happier now?" He set down his cup and he looked off into the distance as if to clear his mind to ensure the words came out right. After a long, contemplative breath, he replied, "I am happier, but it's hard to describe. I would say that I now have a deeper, richer view of happiness than I had before. Jason had discovered the hard way that a life that is deeply satisfying can look very different than the one he once expected. It's kind of like I look back on my life before, how I measured happiness, and see that there's this deeper level of joy in my life now. Yeah, it would be great to have the newer car or the house renovation or the white picket fence and the picture-perfect family, but I think that kind of happiness is short-lived. Or at least happiness can look very different than that. I'm experiencing a deep satisfaction and happiness because we know that this is what we're meant to do. Jason names something I have been trying to find the words to communicate for a long time. Our deepest happiness in life stems from fulfilling purpose, doing the best we can, where we are with what we've been given is the best way to live a life of meaning and significance. It's how to be happy. Jason's experience of happiness flies in the face of what most people in Western society have been conditioned to believe about where happiness can be found. Retailers, advertisers, and marketers of every type have led us to believe that we'll be happy with the next thing we attain. This is the underlying message of every advertising campaign, that we're not as happy or fulfilled as we would be if we had their product. So we spend our time, energy, and resources on that which, in the long run, fails to satisfy. A recent article in the USA Today put a price tag on the American dream, so many of us have been taught is our birthright. According to their calculations, counting house, car, necessities, simple luxuries, even savings and retirement, it costs $103,357 to live the American dream. I find this incredibly foolish. I've spent 90% of my life making less than half that dollar figure and have never felt deprived in any way. But even more telling and unfortunate to me is how the article's writers define the American dream. To them, it requires a $275,000 house, a four-wheel drive SUV, restaurants, entertainment, vacations, even a maxed out 401k. This is how they define happiness in material terms and material terms only. This is the message we are constantly fed. As a result, we continually seek happiness in the next purchase: clothing, phones, tech gadgets, cars, houses. We continually seek happiness in the next job or bigger paycheck, more prestige, more power, more satisfaction, more dollars. We continually seek happiness in the next physical enhancement: skin, slimmer figure, larger muscles. We continually seek happiness in the next escape: clubs, television, vacations, addictions. We continually seek happiness in the next relationship, the next woman or man who will meet our needs. And while these pursuits may pay off for a moment of pleasure, they consistently fail to deliver lasting happiness. That's why we constantly pursue more and more of them, but are never fully satisfied. You can never accumulate enough of that which will never make you happy. Many of us are so busy chasing the next thing that we never pause to ask what we're really after and what will truly satisfy. So we feel a pang of envy scrolling through the sister-in-law's St. Thomas vacation photos. We may long for the leisure enjoyed by our neighbor who retired at 55 and now plays golf every day. We might even quietly believe that the parents of our child's friend are happier because of what they wear, where they live, and what they drive. But when we pause from our scramble long enough to reflect, we notice that the folks who are living the dream aren't as happy as we expected they might be. They're off chasing the next attainment just as feverishly as we are. When we're in our right minds, we recognize that lasting happiness must be found somewhere else than the pursuit of more perks and pleasures. My friend Sandra is someone who's been able to pause and name what makes her deeply satisfied. Sandra owns a popular local restaurant and employs teens to bus tables there. Sandra shared with me that a 17-year-old girl started working at the restaurant on Mother's Day, which was wildly busy. As the young employee was punching her time card at the end of the day, Sandra asked how she felt about her first day. With an exhausted look on her face, the girl remarked, "I am so tired." Sandra, who also hustled throughout the day, added, "I know, doesn't it feel great?" The girl, clearly surprised by her boss's comment, mustered, I don't know if that's what I was going to say." Sandra laughed as she recounted the story to me, explaining, "There's just this wonderful feeling to know that you've put your whole heart into something and lived your day to the fullest, that you didn't waste it. You made the most of it." What Sandra was describing about work is also true in life. We experience meaning and satisfaction when we get to the end of the day, end of the year, end of the season, and know that we put everything we had into what we were doing, that we gave our all to something bigger than us. That kind of meaning and purpose simply can't be found among life's more fleeting pleasures. Those things may add short moments of happiness and pleasure, but we experience the most authentic, long-lasting happiness when we fulfill the role we've been called to live. We taste it, not as we strive to please ourselves, but as we offer the benefit we're designed to provide in the world. If you know what your purpose is, that's great. If you don't, let me suggest one simple step you can take today. Who is one person in your life who needs what you can offer? A child, a coworker, a friend, or maybe a customer at your business. What benefit can you bring into that person's life today? This living a life not for ourselves but for others is at the root of that deeper happiness we're each made for. And the big win is that it's not available only to the privileged few. A 15-year-old girl who hosts a fundraiser to build an orphanage can experience authentic happiness. A woman who cares for an ailing parent can enjoy knowing that she is doing the most with what she has. A man with a PhD who just completed drug rehab and is working at Home Depot can choose happiness by serving others on the job. Experiencing satisfaction by doing the best we can right where we are with what we've been given is going to look different for each person. You can tackle what is in front of you today with confidence that as you purpose to benefit others where you are with what you've been given, you can enjoy meaning and satisfaction. Now, let's slow it down and give you some space to reflect. Journaling can be one of the best ways to make sense of what you're searching for and where you're finding or missing satisfaction. So here are some prompts to get you started. Number 1, what am I searching for right now? Is it something external, like success or recognition? Or something internal, like peace, joy, or forgiveness? When I picture finally arriving, what does that look like? Number 2, what has actually brought me satisfaction in the past? Which moments left me feeling genuinely fulfilled, not just temporarily excited? Were those tied to people, values, or accomplishments? What clues do these past experiences give me about where to search today? And number 3, am I open to something deeper? What role might purpose, spirituality, or faith play in this search? How could I explore that without pressure or expectation? What's one small practice, prayer, meditation, or journaling to God that I could try this week? Remember, you don't have to have all the answers right away. These prompts are a teaser for the 5-day journaling companion linked in the show notes, where we'll go deeper day by day. If you want to share encouragementology with a friend who needs to know they're not alone in this journey of self-discovery, you can visit encouragementology.com or anywhere you stream your content to receive this episode and all others. Check out the show notes for the 5-day journaling companion and follow us on Facebook and Instagram for additional encouragement throughout the week. So I challenge you, pause your constant search long enough to ask yourself what you're really longing for beyond the next milestone or accomplishment. Take one small step this week, whether that's aligning with your values, connecting with someone who matters, or even opening the door to a conversation with God, to move from restless striving toward true satisfaction. I know you can do it. Thank you for listening to Encouragementology with Kendall Boyson, where we find positive ways to handle some of life's challenges.
I stumbled through until the path was clear.